I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will you please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening. All directors are present with the exception of Tom Anderson. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
By Mike, second by Stacy. Any changes, questions, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Next, we have the consent agenda, which includes the check wire transfer and disbursement summary, approval of the school board minutes from August 8th and August 22nd, resignations and terminations as presented, donations from Dynavox Express and for a stowaway Bluetooth keyboard from Patrick Tony's estate, $100 from the Sutherlands through the Alaris Financial Charitable Donation for 5 Hawks Elementary. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'll move. By Todd, second by Lee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. We don't have a Laker Pride or Laker Showcase this evening, so we'll move to open forum. This is a point in time where we allow residents of our community to address the board on issues that aren't part of the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to address the board this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to personnel. Matt.
All right. First, I would like to recommend the following candidates for approval, or for employment, and am seeking board approval.
Do I have a motion to approve the candidates in the board package? Do I have a motion to approve the employment of the candidates in the board package?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. By Lee. Second.
Second.
By Stacy. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Then we have amend the retirement date.
Yeah, so next I recommend the amendment of a previously board-approved retirement date. This is for Rick Steinhoff to move that date from October 8th to October 5th, and this will accurately reflect what he needs in order to retire under the state's pension plan with a rule of 90.
Do I have a motion to approve the amended retirement date?
So.
By Todd, second by Stacy. Any questions or discussion? Just one question. Does this have any financial impact to the district?
It does not, no.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Leaves of the absences.
And next I present the following leaves of absence and am seeking board approval.
Do I have a motion to approve the leaves as presented? By
So moved.
Rich. Second.
Second.
By Lee. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. 2011-12 additional staffing.
Next, we have 2 requests for additional staffing, the first of which is for a .1 Acellus math teacher and a .05 essentials teacher at the high school, and this is to help students with remedial programming. And the second request is for a technology integration trainer, and with all of the movement that we've been making in our technology department, we want to make sure that teachers are able to use that technology in the best way possible to really give students the tools to be successful. And that's what this person would be doing within that department, is working with teachers to make sure that they're maximizing the tools that they have at their disposal. So with that, I will make the recommendation and I'm seeking board approval.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the additional staffing request?
I'll make the motion.
By Lee, second.
Second.
By Stacy. Any questions or discussion? Rich.
Follow-up, this is not a certified position, the technology integration trainer?
That's correct. It could be that we will have a teacher in that position, but still it would not be part of the
requirement.
of the unit. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, in the definitions, it says part-time.
What we have there is approximately 300 hours that we'd be envisioning for this individual to participate in staff training. And so that's what that comes out to, whereas a full-time 9-month position would be about 1,450, so it's about a quarter position.
Any other questions?
As you can see, it does not require any additional funding that's coming out of that technology budget as well. To make sure our community knows that part.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. And then we have job descriptions.
And then we do have job descriptions, and the first 3 come in a bunch. And so we have a noon supervisor at the secondary level job description, in-school suspension, and a computer lab support person. These are 3 supervisory positions that are new to the district. And the need for these positions arose when we made the transition to the 6-period day at the high school. So that's a reminder of where these are coming from, and they reflect and are consistent with the other similarly situated positions in the district, the job descriptions. Okay. And with that, I'm seeking board approval. I will make a special mention, too, of the 4th job description, which is also a new job description in the district. And this is for the adult basic education instructor. And that is a new initiative as we pull back the services from the county and start our own adult basic education program to deliver services to residents of our community. So with that, I will seek board approval.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the job descriptions as presented?
So moved.
By Mike, second? Second. By Todd. Any questions or discussion? Rich?
Another the in-school suspension support person, licensure requirement? Prerequisite?
There is not a licensure requirement there.
But they supervise students?
They do
in a
supervise
classroom setting?
It's not in a classroom setting, but if Mr. Lund, would you care to speak to the particulars of that?
In-school suspension supervisor is not a licensure area required. They are supervising anywhere from 6 to 10 students, sometimes 2 students at a time, either for part of the day or all day. That's our step. The person we do have in there, by the way, has a short call sub-license through the state of Minnesota. It's not a required licensure area, and
that's our preference when we can, to put a student on in-school suspension so they can work on their stuff instead of out-of-school suspension.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? So I have one. These positions are keep us. They were planned at the time we did the 6-period day decision. The expenditure, it was part of the net savings that we expected to have, and we're not backing away from that in any way, right? I'll take a nod as yes. All right. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion carries 6-0. Thank you. We have no old business. So next we have a resolution authorizing approval of the sale of bonds. Julie.
Good evening, Chair Pratt, board members, and Dr. Gruber. Tonight we're bringing forward a resolution for refinancing some building bonds. And so Gary Olson from Ayers and Associates is here to walk you through this resolution. And also in front of you, you should have received a packet showing all the detailed information of the financials of what the savings of that refunding bond would possibly look like.
Good evening. As Julie said, you have 2 bond issues that are outstanding that are good candidates for being refunded. transactions similar to what you would do if you had a mortgage and you're looking to reduce the interest rate on your mortgage. Unfortunately, these are a little more complicated than that in terms of the way they work, but you have two different bond issues that are eligible to be refunded. The 2013 through 2016 maturities of your $18.4 million bond issue from 2005, and the 2014 to 2023 maturities of your $5 million bond issue from 2003. Interest rates right now are at a very, very low point, so it's advantageous for districts, and we're looking at a lot of districts. Obviously, we continue to monitor districts' existing bonds, hoping to provide them with an opportunity to save their taxpayers' money, and that's what we're doing in this particular case. In looking at this, obviously, the sale's not scheduled. The bids wouldn't come in till October 3rd, but based on where interest rates are right now at near historic lows, if not historic lows, we could see savings up to somewhere in the $926,000 over for the course of the two different bond issues together. That savings would start right away in 2013 on the one bond issue, and the other bond issue, the savings would start in 2014. We're not extending the term of any of those bonds. We're just processing them at lower interest rates, so in order to save taxpayer dollars. The way this will work is that we will, you would be adopting a resolution tonight that would authorize the issuance of these bonds. The bond sale would actually be on October 3rd, which is a date when there's not a board meeting. But the resolution would authorize the board chair and the superintendent to accept a proposal as long as it meets certain parameters established by the Finance Committee earlier this evening. 725, I believe, $725,000 minimum level of savings, and a 4.9% savings as a percent of present value debt service. So if the bids come in and they meet those criteria, they would have the power to authorize that, and then what would happen is on October 10th, we would have another resolution, a full sales resolution coming back to the board that would ratify the action taken by the board chair and the superintendent.
Amount is 720.
Oh, 720, excuse me, 720,000 and 4.9%. So, and it also requires that you have a positive recommendation from us. Those three things have to meet in order for you to accept the bond.
Okay. Any questions for Gary or Julie before I take a motion?
Do we have discussion after the motion, or?
Yeah.
Okay, we can do it that way too.
That's it. However you want.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the authorization to sell general obligation bonds?
So
By
moved.
Stacy, second?
I'll second it.
By Rich. All right, any questions or discussion?
Well, I have a question,
Yeah.
or maybe clarification. These parameters that were set, that was something that came from the Finance Committee, that's a recommendation to the board?
Yes, correct.
How was that decided? Was that something that you gave guidelines to, or you?
There was much discussion on what that should be. At the current time, we're showing the savings to be $926,000 where it's at right now, but we wish we all had a crystal ball in which we could say, yes, this is what the savings are going to be, and that's what the parameters are. But knowing just a couple weeks ago that the savings were right around $795,000, and interest rates have lowered since then, we wanted to give ourselves leeway to still save money. When we looked at it 3 weeks ago, we said at $795,000 in savings was still a really good deal. So even though we may not meet the 926 where it is right now, which we're really hoping we will able to do that or better, we wanted to set those parameters somewhere that we felt comfortable that we still could accept something that was still a really a significant savings.
Okay, so your expectation is to save more than this, but this is the minimum that you
Right.
can go
We just
to.
want to make sure that we're allowing enough room in there for changes in interest rates.
Effectively, what we said was, looking at where we started this process, we wanted to make sure that we got at least 90% of that benefit. And so that's how we came up
Okay.
with the 720,000. And so even though we've seen a significant rise in benefit since the point in time that Julie started this process, we look back at where she initially thought that this was still a good deal that made sense and gave us a little bit of cushion.
Gary, maybe you could explain, is my mic on? It doesn't sound, but I don't know. The difference between the two types of bonds, because I think that's the one part was the conversation as far as the advance call and what the state requirement for a minimum threshold is, because I think that would be appropriate for the board and the community to understand a little
Something we
bit of
spent
that.
a lot of time talking about at the Finance Committee
Yep.
meeting. The 2005 bonds are callable on February 1st, 2012. When you sell bonds, you always set a call provision that says any bonds after a certain date can be recalled and refinanced. The bonds before that date can't. And the timing of when you set that call typically around 10 years. And if you do anything shorter than that, you're going to pay higher interest rates from the underwriters in order to have a shorter call. So these bonds are callable on February 1, 2012. They are eligible to what's called a current refunding. As long as you close the transaction within 90 days of February 12th, which is November 3rd, which is when we would plan on closing these bonds, they can be considered to be a current refunding. And so what will happen with that portion of the bond issue, the district will get that money. Julie will have that. She'll have it for about 2 months where she can invest it, or 3 months. She can invest it. And then on February of 2012, she'll pay those bonds off because they're callable on February 1st. And she'll pay them off. They're gone. And she'll start paying on the new portion of them, on the new bonds. Now, the other bonds are not callable until February 1st, 2013, 1 year later. So that's what's called an advance refunding. And what happens with the advance refunding is the bond proceeds are invested in U.S. Treasuries. They're put into an escrow account for a year. And during that time frame, till you get to February of 2013. In the meantime, there'll be an interest payment on August of 2012 and February of 2013. And then when you get to February 1st, 2013, it'll pay off the bonds that mature on 2014 and thereafter. That's what's called an advance refunding. The state has some requirements on advance refunding that says you have to save at least 3%. Well, we're projecting now over 6%, and the parameters resolution is just under 5%, but it's still well above what that state mandate is. So we think that's still a pretty good deal. If you can get close to 5%, that's usually considered to be a good refunding. So what happens with those proceeds is they go into a escrow account. They're invested for a year, and at the end of the year, then they pay off the other set of bonds. That's the smaller issue. That's the $5 million. Does that help?
A little.
Does it? It's a lot. And I think the 3% was a lot of our conversation was, and the reason for that is you only get one opportunity to refund on the advance, right? So that's where we were, at the Finance Committee discussing, what's an appropriate amount? Do we just look at what the state says, or should we as a district kind of say, no, if we're going to actually do this because we only have one opportunity, set a higher threshold, if you will. And so that was the conversation we had. And, to your comment, probably, Lee, you're looking at it just as we were a few hours ago in Finance Committee, that ideally it'll be even better than the 926, but we, Julie and Gary were wanting to make sure that we don't peg that number just if it goes the other direction. And so I think that's where Eric said the fair conversation we had was, if a few weeks ago it came and at that time, around 800,000 from Julie's perspective being a real good deal to say, yep, go ahead and do the work to find out what it would be. And it's obviously gone favorable here, but we said, in all fairness, if 800 was a good number, let's peg our recommendation as a Finance Committee off of that number. And, it does come with the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to the full board.
And this all will help help our taxpayers?
Yes.
And we
Will
still
lower-
have the money that we need to continue to operate as we are, just for clarification.
It lowers the interest rates on those bonds, so therefore the payments are lower.
Okay.
It doesn't impact operations or anything. It's just strictly the debt service payments on the bonds will be less. Therefore, your property tax levy for debt service will be lower. So it's a benefit to the taxpayers of the school district.
I just wanted you to repeat that.
It's just good, responsible action on your board's part to always be looking for that opportunity to help out the taxpayers. And in this we've just identified this as a good opportunity for your board to do that.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Is this a roll call vote? Okay. So we have a motion and a second with the roll call vote. Todd? Aye. Rich?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Eric will say aye. Stacy?
Aye.
And that motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a proclamation for Constitution Week, and I'd like to invite Betty Schneider to come up and address the board.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Gruber, School Board. My name is Betty Schneider. I am a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, John Witherspoon chapter. The DAR is a volunteer service organization based on lineage to someone who fought or gave aid to the American Revolution. We preserve historic buildings and artifacts, provide contests, awards, and scholarship, support schools, and develop good citizens while celebrating the exceptional events of our American history. I have been active in the community attempting to raise awareness of the Daughters of the American Revolution and promoting our programs. You may have seen the article, thank you Dr. Gruber for giving me a copy, in this week's Prior Lake American, where two of my DAR colleagues and I presented a banner, We Remember 9/11, to Major General Richard Nash, Adjutant General of the State of Minnesota. I'm aware of how much the Prior Lake area schools do to observe Constitution Week each year, including activities such as memorization of the preamble, reading of We the Kids, and Rules on a Stick. I'm offering to be of any additional service that is required. Last year, my husband and I donated pocket constitutions to the graduating class of Prior Lake High School. In addition to receiving proclamations from the Prior Lake School Board and the City of Prior Lake, I adopted a classroom of 4th graders in Oxbow Elementary in Champlin. This year, I'm working with a social studies teacher at St. Michael's, focusing on the Bill of Rights to commemorate its 220th anniversary. And the Girl Scouts, giving presentations and giving each of the 80 students Constitution Week's kits, consisting of pocket constitutions, information on the Bill of Rights, Pledge of Allegiance, the preamble, an American's Creed, and a student proclamation. I would also like to leave these posters proclaiming Constitution Week, and if you would like to receive additional posters for your schools, I can provide those. I'm also the American History Chair for my chapter. DAR conducts essay contests each year for grades 5 through 8 and 9 through 12. The essay contest information I'll also leave. I would encourage you to share this information with your children, with your grandchildren, or neighbors. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. As part of the American History program, and with the recommendation of Eric Pratt, I was able to nominate Nathan Dapper, the 8th grade American History teacher at Twin Oaks Middle School, for the DAR's Outstanding American History Teacher Award. Mr. Dapper won recognition for the state of Minnesota and was honored at our state conference in May. I would welcome another opportunity to nominate a teacher so deserving of recognition. Please contact me with any such name. There are Good Citizen Awards for high school students and other programs available through the DAR, and I would be happy to provide additional information for those programs. I'm pleased to be here on the 224th anniversary of the Constitution to receive your proclamation this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks, Betty. And with that, I would like to offer the following proclamation for board vote. Whereas September 17th, 2011 marks the 224th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America. by the Constitutional, excuse me, by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document and the anniversary of its creation, and whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, therefore, we, the Prior Lake, the School Board of Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, do hereby proclaim September 16th through the 23rd, 2011, to be Constitution Week within the Prior Lake Savage Area School District. I urge all citizens to join me in recognizing Constitution Week to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution in 1787. And with the board's approval, we will sign this proclamation for our district. Do I have a motion to approve Constitution Week?
I'll make the motion.
By Mike. Second. By Stacy. Any questions, discussions, or comments? Seeing none, and seeing it extremely fitting that we're doing this the day after the 10th anniversary of 9/11, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss you?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to say that Betty Schneider is really a true friend of our schools and a partner in so many different ways. And we really look forward to this future partnership as we look for new ways to help get recognition for our teachers, give opportunities for our students to participate in writing contests, et cetera, as we move through not only Constitution Week, but through the whole school year. So thank you. You're a real friend for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the Bridges ALC handbooks. And Mr. Lund?
I guess I can answer what you need.
I think we're ahead of schedule.
I think we are ahead of schedule. Did you want to push this back a little bit?
No, I haven't heard from Mr. Brown if he's going to be here or not.
Okay.
If you got any questions, I can try to answer them. Not much changed since I was heading it up.
Yes.
In the handbook, it refers to cell phones not being allowed in the classroom. And is that a conflict with our policy now and the change in having cell phones for educational use?
Yes and no. I know that in the past there...
It's under technology.
Yeah, hold on.
I don't know, 7? Page 7.
There's 7, thank you.
At the very bottom.
Yeah.
I guess
They do allow that cell phones in the classroom. That should probably be worded. I can take it back. If you'll notice, it says having cell phones in the building is a privilege. They do allow them in the building. They actually have a little less stringent policy than the high school does on cell phones in between class and so on and so forth. The intention there was, especially when, now they just got smart boards this year, but especially when they're working in the Plato class, they were having a lot of problems with students having their cell phones out, playing games on their cell phones. So they're not to be used in class without permission. So I can have them adjust that to align itself with the high school, yes.
As to whether you can or you can't.
I do understand, because in the next statement after that, it says using cell phones in the privilege is in the building is a privilege, which contradicts the first statement. I can have them rework that to go along with the new high school policy.
Okay. That'd be good.
Given this is a fairly new program, were there any significant changes that you saw?
No, I didn't see actually any changes than we've had over the last 3 years. The first part about admission and everything and who qualifies and who doesn't qualify is actually all written in state statute that goes over ALC students. Contract for behavior they've been doing since we opened it. So I don't actually see anything new in there except the attendance was adjusted like the high school to reflect quarters on the 7 absences versus 10 absences that it was under the trimester. Otherwise, essentially, the handbook is the same as it has been for the last 3 years.
Okay.
Question?
Yes.
Under the admission procedure on page 3,
Yep.
underlined section, is that new? seems fairly harsh.
No, we, that's always been in there. It's, Bridges is considered a second high school in the district, and so when students are in Bridges, a lot of times the students that were there half-time would like to come over and wander around the halls in the high school during its day while school is in session. They are two separate high schools. We don't allow high school students to go over and wander around Bridges during the academic day, just like we wouldn't let them go to Burnsville or Shakopee, and the same thing here. Bridges students, they do come over for classes. We have students that will take classes, they'll come over for music, or they'll come over for a Phi Ed. But if they're to come over during the school day, they are to register as a guest for an appointment.
Okay, because I didn't see a similar statement in the handbook for Twin Oaks and Hidden Oaks.
We don't have Twin Oaks or Hidden Oaks students generally driving and coming over.
Oh.
These kids have cars. A lot of them are on work program, they're done at noon. The job may not start till 3 o'clock, and they would like to come and hang out with their friends in the high school because they're all
And
the
so
same
this
age.
is
and we
just
don't
during
allow-
school hours then?
Just during school hours.
Okay, should we add that during school hours then?
I can have that added.
Then, I guess I would recommend that.
We can put in there during student contact day. So if they need
Yeah,
to see
however
a
you want to
teacher
word it,
before-
but just,
Okay,
I'm just, if someone comes over for a co-curricular activity
correct.
without
Correct.
registering, they're not. Okay.
But we've had that in for the 3 years too, since that first year when we had a lot of,
If we could just clarify that, that would ease my concerns.
not a problem.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
So do you want that clarified, may I ask, clarified and then brought back?
And were we going to clarify the cell phone?
Yeah, I'm gonna,
If I added that
I'm
sentence.
gonna realign that to the high school policy.
Right.
I'm comfortable with making the motion with the suggestions, recommendations that we're giving you to go forward. So I think it's more important to get the handbook
Yep.
into the
And I
hands
can
of
have
the
both
right
those done. The
people.
one will read during student contact time, and the other one I'll align with the high school cell phone policy.
Okay.
And I'll make that motion.
So we have a motion to approve the handbook with the discussed provisions. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
By Rich. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0.
On behalf of Mr. Brown, I thank you.
Thank you. The approval of the agreement with CSEC for the adult-based education GED and ELL. Looks like we have Leanne.
Good evening.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Okay. As a
Yes.
follow-up to the July presentation where I came and I presented an overview of adult basic education, I'm here tonight in your board packets on page 121 and 122. There's the proposed agreement between Carver Scott Educational Cooperative and the Prior Lake Savage Area Schools Community Education Program. It is outlined clearly what the roles and the responsibilities are of each entity. It's been looked at very carefully, talked about, edited, proofed, and it's here tonight. And I would just recommend administrative approval. Do you have any questions or comments?
Could you just go through the highlights of the agreement, the most pertinent facts that would affect us?
Well, as far as the, I'll talk about the budgeting and the staffing.
Okay.
The program, the new change that would occur for us, we are still in the same collaborative that we've always been in, and we've had an agreement for years. The difference is that we would be receiving 2/3 of the state aid, and Carver Scott would, they'll get all of the aid, and we would bill them to get locally 2/3 of the funds that are available to our district, and they would keep 1/3 in order to do the administrative oversight. They do the training orientation for the tests that occur for GED and ESL students, the state standards, and we would have the local oversight, and then we would have the funds to set up classes in our own community. And we're looking at setting them up at Bridges beginning the week of October 3rd. The position that you approved tonight, the job description for the ABE instructors, one position that was posted is for ESL. That's our English language learner adults that would come in the evenings. And that will be 3 nights a week, Mondays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. But to get back to your question, the agreement allows us to be able to do what we think is best and that would meet the needs. Because right now, last year, we did not have any local programs in our community. People would have to drive and go to Shakopee or Chaska, Jordan, New Prague. So we're excited because we can do 3 nights of ESL, 5:30 to 8:30 at Bridges. It uses the same technology that they're using there. And we can do 3 nights of GED. And hopefully we'll figure out what the child care needs are. We have enough money to be able to offer child care if that is a need. We also have money for materials. Carver Scott also provides some of the materials that they have at their location. And what else would you want to know?
So if I understand the original discussion, we can't offer this program on our own. We do, in fact, have to be part of a cooperative by law.
Right. And in July, I presented all about that and how we looked at research of different consortium models. Then Carver Scott came forward. We had meetings with other administrators, and they were willing to work with us to pilot it. So the agreement is for 1 year, so that at the end of the year we can evaluate how it's going. One of the things is that we need to start the marketing and outreach, because there's also additional funds that would be available to us based on the number of hours that we have students in the seats, similar to they call it contact time. So the number of students that we have also generates revenue, but that is a year behind because you used the previous year's data. So we don't have any funding for that yet. And we did interview last week. The board, at your September 26th meeting, we will be bringing forward the top 2 candidates for the positions for your approval.
Do I have a motion to approve the agreement with Carver Scott?
So moved.
By Stacy, second by Todd. Any other questions, comments?
My only comment is that what Leanne has been working collaboratively with the personnel at Carver Scott, the leadership there, to make this a smooth transition so that we can offer these adult programs right here in our own community, hoping that we'll generate a pool of candidates of students that want to have further education right here, and the travel won't be as much of an issue for them. So this is a pilot, a new way of doing business, and Carver Scott Educational Cooperative has been really very proactive in helping us kind of delve into this. So we're looking forward to this opportunity to provide this new kind of service to our adults in our community.
And I think it's important. I thought it was interesting when I was reading about adults. I always think of someone 18 years or older. However, if the student was going to our high school or going to Bridges and those 2 options did not work, so after the Alternative Learning Center experience, and if they were to drop out, they're eligible at 16 to participate in a GED program, which is a nice option. So when you think adult, it isn't limited to 18-year-olds. So we're hoping that if there are families or if there might be students in that experience, that we have another option in our district. And the other good news is, as I always say in community ed, is there is no cost to the general fund whatsoever. The entire budget is self-supporting with what we can offer.
Okay. Good. Any other questions? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much. Next, we have a title funding overview. Mr. Holmberg.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Groover. I'm here tonight seeking approval on the title allocations for the 2011-2012 school year. In your board packets, I've provided an overview that gives a brief historical perspective of title funding in the district over the last several years and also looking forward to the next couple years. And on the back of that is the financial allocations for title over the last several years and also looking forward to 11 and 12. And I am here tonight seeking board approval on acceptance of those funds.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the allocation of title funds as presented? So moved. By Todd, second. Second. By Stacy. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Are you still up?
I am.
Oh, District Curriculum Advisory Committee.
In your board packet this evening, I'm bringing forward the District Curriculum Advisory roster for the 2011-2012 school year, and I'm seeking board approval. This advisory committee is largely intact from last year. We do have a couple of new members to the committee this year. And then throughout the course of the school year, we do have additional teacher representatives come and address this committee on topics relevant to curriculum instruction assessment. The meetings have changed a bit. We're changing to Tuesday evenings, so logistically there's some changes. And on the back side of the committee roster is the letter that was sent to them recently indicating the topics that the Curriculum Advisory Committee will be addressing throughout the course of the year. And so I am seeking board approval on the roster.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the District Curriculum Advisory roster for the school year?
I'll make the motion.
By Mike, second.
I'll second it.
By Rich. Any questions or discussion?
I guess I just have an observation.
Yeah.
There's a lot of school-related people on this committee. There's not a whole lot of parent representation, community member, it doesn't seem like, not like we've had in the past, and I know we've pared that down for obvious reasons because of getting people there and time and everything. But the parents that are there, do you think they're representative of all students at every level of learning, of skill of learning? Not, I don't mean grade, I mean ability.
You know, as committee members coming on board and you know, providing their perspective, you know, we do look for a parent perspective, and many parents that come to the committee are reflecting the perspective that they have through their children. And their children are, to my knowledge, have various abilities, whether they're gifted or whether they're average students. But certainly they are to provide a perspective of the parent. I have not had any concerns that the committee is underrepresented, but also, too, this is a committee that we certainly welcome parents, or if parents are looking for a way to get involved, they could certainly become part of this committee. So, but presently with the roster, I do not share any concerns right now with their perspective.
Okay. Once again, my concern is that middle group of kids, a lot of times the parents are, kids doing okay, status quo, so I don't need to get involved, status quo, and they kind of get lost. And you get more passion from the high end or the low end, it seems like, and I don't want to forget about the larger middle.
Okay.
And I don't know these people well enough to say if they're represented. I was just curious if you felt that they are being represented on the committee.
But we have about the same amount of community, it appears to me we have the same amount of community input as we had when board members were nominating delegates to the committee. Is that correct?
I guess my message then would be to make sure that when you are discussing that is taken into consideration. I expect that it would be, but just like to reinforce that.
Well, I mean, have we ever turned somebody away from being on the committee?
No. In my time with the school district, this is probably the most robust this committee has been. You know, the first year we had a very limited membership. Last year, as I mentioned, so I mean, we typically, this is a committee that this is a great way for parents to get involved, and no, we've not turned anyone away.
No, and that's kind of my point. We haven't that I know of, but some of the ones that we'd like to see there don't come. And so just to not forget about those kids because their parents don't come or the community member doesn't come.
Is there a concern though? I mean, because I mean,
No
I think,
specific concern. No.
okay, you know,
Just a general statement that I'd like to make.
because I mean, quite honestly, the way that the committee works, the majority of the work is actually done by the curriculum review groups, which are the teachers and the administrators, and this committee is usually seeing the output of that. So very rarely, I think, are we even involved in the curricular details, I guess, if you will, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. The actual nuts and bolts of what comes to this advisory committee is really status updates. As they're moving on with their process of research, evaluation, review of materials or practices, and then ultimately they hear the final product before it comes to the board. And the value of this committee is that really the perspective of, have you thought of this? Are you looking at this? Can you clarify what this part of the process that you're working on as a committee? This is a feedback loop. This is a committee that largely should assist us in identifying those types of things we need to address before the proposal comes ultimately back to them for a final look before it comes to the school board for review or any forthcoming recommendations. So.
And by moving the meetings to the evening, do you expect that you could have some additional, let's call it, open observance?
Presently, the meeting time is similar to last year, from 4 until 5:30. We moved them from Monday nights because we were finding board finance and work sessions were starting to be a big draw on Monday night. So moving to Tuesday night, I solicited some of the feedback of some of the committee members. Tuesday seemed to be a comparable evening.
Okay. I guess I was thinking night a little bit differently. Any other questions?
Well, just a comment. Yeah. I'm real excited about the opportunity. I mean, when I joined the board, I specifically asked Eric if I could be on this committee, because this is what we do as a school district. You know, we worry a lot about the finances and things like that, but ultimately, this curriculum and what we teach to the children are what we do. So I'm really excited, and one of my goals is to raise the profile of this committee, so within the district. So, and I think we'll have lots of opportunities with the new science and math implementation and then as we move into the STEM and immersion programs, study those in the upcoming year. So,
thank you. Okay. We have a motion and a second. If there are no other questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have the revised strategic program. Dr. Gruber.
Yes, on page 129 of your packet, you will find the revised strategic planning page, which is our framework for our future. This was originally created 3 years ago. We brought back that community group that crafted it, and then that you approved at last spring on April 19th, and have them relook at our mission, vision, core values, and strategic directions to make sure that we're still on target. We've had a lot of changes in our communities over the last 3 years, and we wanted to make sure that our schools were in keeping. And basically, very few changes were made. They were more just moving some words around with the same exact mission being there as well as the vision. We've added very few changes, and at our last work study session with the board, this was approved by you at that time, and with the hope to bring it back tonight for adoption and action.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the revised strategic framework? By Lee, second. Second. By Todd. Any questions, comments? I guess the one comment that I would make is, as Sue Ann said, the board's had a chance to review this workshop and have quite a bit of discussion, and I think Mike alluded to it a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about one of our policies. We spent a lot of time really reviewing this to ensure that we all, the administration, the staff, the board, understand the roles that we play and how we can best support this strategic plan. And I think we've got some more work to do on that. But we've got a good start to make sure that we're all supporting this together. With that, did you get motion a second? Mm-hmm. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Next, I'm up. Wow. Laker Pride and Laker Showcase. A few weeks ago, a small group of the board got together. We discussed it here. So Stacy, Lee, and I got together and met with Dr. Gruber to talk about where we wanted to go with recognition as a board, and we promised to bring back a recommendation to the entire board. We generally call these recognitions Laker Prides or Laker Showcases, and they've been fairly fluid over time as far as what has been, where we want to go, what we want to recognize. what the objectives of the recognition are. And so we wanted to take a quick stab at outlining some guidelines that we see. The first would be the Laker Pride, where we're proud of somebody to be a Laker, and that would be very close to what we have today, recognizing someone for their individual or collective achievement, fairly close to the time that they receive that acknowledgement. Recognizing the Robotics Club for a great job at national competition. Recognizing Mr. Dapper and our music department when they get those professional awards. And so keeping that fairly the same, where any board member, any administrator can submit a name that would be reviewed at the point in time that we get together and work with the agenda. And that has been, this year, a change that I've wanted to try in having the vice chair be a part of that agenda setting process. So that the three of us, or the two, if someone weren't able to make it, would have the ability to then look at the nominations and make that determination on behalf of the board. The second would be Laker Showcase. We've been doing that, talking a lot about different things going on in our schools. I think Lee coined the phrase, what's cool in our schools, really talking about the exciting programs that we have going on. What differentiates one school versus another, and bringing that. You can see some of the examples that we have here. I was last spring, went to BizTown with the Jeffers Pond fifth graders and got to see our students operate a city, each with jobs that they took on. We've had egg drop, recycling. We recognized the dogs of Glendale. All of those are innovative programs that make each school unique and make it fun to attend. And then finally, looking at special recognition for volunteers. We have our partnership celebration every spring, but some of the discussion was, do we really say thank you enough to the volunteers at a board level? We thank them at our teas, at the buildings, but for those volunteers that have been with us for a number of years and have had impact on a district-wide basis, we felt it was appropriate for the board to come up with a recognition for those volunteers as well. They could be nominated by anybody, but the thought is, because this is board recognition, they would have to be sponsored by a board member to be considered for this recognition, and we would do something on an occasional basis, 2 to 3 times a year was kind of thrown out. And that's kind of the thought of maybe redefining what we consider Laker Pride and board recognition. I'll open it up to Stacy or Lee for comments as well.
Yeah, I think we just kind of wanted to give, I mean, for me, who's new to the board, it was good to see exactly, you know, the formal part of it, at least what each one of the categories is. And I think, you know, we always want to make sure that we're, especially the recognition of volunteers, because there is so many people that do so much, but for an ongoing basis and for a number of years, to be able to recognize them, you know, in a formal setting from the board, I think is really important. So I was excited about that portion of it. Leanne?
I mean, you both summarized it very well. The one thing that, you know, Laker Pride started out, and as Eric said, it was fluid and it's kind of evolved, and all of a sudden it was like, well, what are our parameters for Laker Pride? And we found out we all had different ideas of what that meant, so it was time to kind of put something down and put some parameters on it. And what's cool in our schools is just finding out what's going on that's fun, and not a report. I don't need to hear an AYP report during what's cool in our schools. But the other things, I mean, the fun things, something that's different. And that was one that I was pushing for. And the recognition, of course, that goes without saying. And as a board, we don't recognize people enough, so it's time.
We have a lot of people that help us make this, that make us successful. And I think we as a board need to be able to celebrate those successes and thank them, appropriately thank them. for all that they do. And so that's really, even though we've kind of laid out some guidelines, what we really want to do is make sure that we're giving heartfelt, meaningful recognition and thanks to those that help us become successful. We're not requesting any board action at this time, but certainly any comments or...
I guess on the Lakers Showcase, these nominations come up as they occur, or is the program set in advance?
No, the program isn't set in advance. Each of our buildings, each of our elementaries, middle, high school, and community education, et cetera, have signed up for a time when they would come, but it's flexible. If they want to trade that with someone else, they can certainly do that. And I think there's been some trading going on for the very first one, which is at our next board meeting. So that can happen at any time, depending on what's happening at their school. They might want to align it with their egg drop. They might want to align it with the water festival or with a new initiative going on. And so even though everyone has a date, they can trade that as they need to.
Every school, okay, so if something new comes up, say in the middle of winter in Hawaii, like,
Yes,
there's still availability to do that? Okay.
I think the interesting thing about Laker Showcase is that the schools and the teachers get a chance to decide what they want to bring to the board and what they want to highlight. And that's maybe a little bit a different form of recognition in that they get to boast about their programs, and then we get to hear about really great innovative things that are going on.
I just want to make one comment. I don't think Leanne is here anymore, but with the special recognition of volunteers, Community Ed does a great job with the partnership celebration. There's no way that we're trying to change that or upstage them or anything like that. It's just that that's kind of coming from the community and Community Ed, and the board is always there to support all of that. But we've never done anything as a board at a meeting that's coming from the board, and that's remiss on our part. So we want to start to do something like that, but it doesn't change anything with the partnership because they do a great job.
That was what I kind of sensed. I mean, there's always been the implied acknowledgement of the board, but I think this is great to say, there really should be the explicit acknowledgement by the board as well. So I think that's great. The only question when you were going through this, Eric, because you discussed Laker Pride and then you cited a couple examples that were groups or teams. So is that just an oversight in terms of the statement that says it recognizes an individual?
Well, I think Mr. Dapper being recognized as Teacher of the Year.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I think last year we had the wrestling team come in. So
I see what you mean.
that's all I'm saying. Is I think that is really more the accomplishment as a Laker that we're saying come in and we want to recognize them as a board. So it could be individual or group or team or whatever, right? I think you mentioned the robotics club also. So.
And let's say with Steve Milton, it could be alumni who's
Yep.
somebody who does something special that highlights some of the values
Yep.
that we have, something that they started as a student, as a Laker, and have carried that through, and we're proud that they continue to be a Laker.
Okay.
We just need to probably add that in so it doesn't limit it just to individual.
So it could be team or group.
Eric, with the special recognition, should we have a name for that, or do we want to come up with a theme for that, or is there?
Do you have an idea?
I don't have an idea.
He's going to come up with one though.
We talked about it. We talked about it as almost a lifetime of achievement. But in all honesty, these are people that we don't want to feel like they're done.
Yeah.
We want it to be a celebration of what they've done and hopefully keep them to continue. So if we can come up with a different name, we'll certainly take that.
How about Laker Gratitude?
That's good.
We can,
Special recognition award.
But you guys are all okay with the concept?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I think concept's great.
Yep.
okay. And again, we weren't planning on any board action on this, but this is what we'll start to bring forward at future meetings. There's no policy. Is there any new business that we need to address before we go to administrative reports? Seeing none, Dr. Gruber.
Absolutely. Well, we've had a great start to our school year. As of today, our enrollment is at 7,199 students, which is higher than it was last year at this time. close to this time, and it will still fluctuate a bit, and we have our October 1st numbers, which are really the ones we live by with the state. That's the number they want to have, and we know we have new students coming in on a daily basis. I talked to Mr. Edwards today, and he had 3 new students today. So you never know how those numbers shift and change over the next couple of weeks, but we are very pleased. We have more students than we anticipated. We thought it would be closer to flat than it is. So we're very excited that we are getting more students than we had anticipated. Our schools are welcoming them as they come in. We have had a really good start for our staff and our teachers. We thought maybe 2744 was going to be a major roadblock, literally, for them over the course of the first week and a half of school. But in fact, we're, with a few exceptions, I think Todd mentioned tonight he had a 5-minute wait about 5:30. And there is sometimes a 5-minute wait, but our county sheriff's department has placed deputies there at our bus times for the high school, both in the morning and in the afternoon, which has really been a tremendous help of getting that traffic through. So we're managing through, and the lights are being hung as we speak and should be operating by Monday the 19th. So we'll look forward to having that stop sign in place and that roadway completed, that if you've driven on it, you've seen they're busy getting that prepared as well. So we're pleased that hasn't been a deterrent, and there haven't been any accidents or big traffic jams because of it, as it affects our students and our staff and parents. We have on Friday, well, actually twice last week, we had KSTP Channel 5 reporting from our high school. They were at our high school all day on Wednesday, and then I believe it was Wednesday, or was it the first day of school? Tuesday. It was Tuesday. And they reported on the 2744, trying to see if it was a real issue or not. But then they also did some research and then had on Channel 5 at 5 and 6 o'clock on Friday evening a report on our use of cell phones for instruction and in the classroom, as well as our smart boards. And that can be viewed from our Facebook page, and if you have liked this on Facebook, you will get it automatically. But if you don't, you can go to our website, click on Facebook, and it's right there. So that was a good positive reinforcement of the good things going on in our schools. We've also launched our marketing video, and we've started it on our own YouTube channel called ISD 719, and you can go to YouTube and click in ISD 719. It'll take you right to our marketing video, and that is on there as well. We have lots of good technology, rich opportunities for our families and for our community, and we're looking forward to increasing those over the course of the next several months. And other than that, I think we're getting ready for another great week as we begin this week, and have had good things happening throughout our district with very few hiccups, a few in the kitchens, but we've been able to survive them and get through them, so I think we're doing well. And certainly there is no fault of our kitchen staff. It's just been equipment being used again at a very rapid pace and getting those kinks worked out. So we'll have a new dishwasher at Twin Oaks as soon as possible, humanly possible. So all is well.
Okay. Any other administrative reports? Jeff?
Good evening again. Earlier this evening, I presented an opportunity to the Board Finance Committee presented to us by our math expressions vendors. If you recall, last spring, the Board approved a 2-year implementation of science, largely National Geographic, but the second year, 2012-13, being math expressions. What was presented to us late last week was a discounted rate if we were to purchase those materials by September 30th, 2011, so a couple weeks from now. And so I presented this to the Finance Committee. Presently, that discount would warrant an approximate $37,000 to $40,000 savings to the school district. And so in presenting that to the board this evening and talking about possible solutions, we we are proceeding forward with capitalizing on that opportunity. I'll be working with Julie Cink to ensure that the money is accounted for out of the 11-12 budget, brought back to the Finance Committee as part of the preliminary budget and final budget, which comes to the school board for approval.
Okay. Any other administrative reports? Okay, any board reports? Okay, seeing none, there's a building committee meeting on Thursday.
I think we're going to reschedule. You or Todd can be there.
Okay. There was going to be a building committee meeting on Thursday. We have Constitution Day on September 16th, Fall Community Fest on Monday the 19th, board meeting on the 26th, and then on October 3rd, we have a joint meeting with the City of Prior Lake and our board scholar program at Prior Lake High School. Is there any other business that needs to come before the board this evening? Seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. By Todd, second. By Stacy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 6-0, and we stand adjourned. Thank you.